Under the orange moonlight, the garden looked like a place from a dream. The air was cool, the trees stood quietly, and the smell of ripe mangoes filled the night sky. An old man sat on a wooden chair near his small broken house, his hands rested on a cup of cold tea, his eyes half closed but still sharp, like those of a hunter who never forgot how to watch. He had seen her before. The small girl with silver hair and skin that glowed just a little in the dark. She came quietly every few nights. Always the same way, sneaking through the hole in the fence and heading straight to the tallest mango tree. She moved fast, but not with fear, more like hunger guided her, like her small body was running on its last bit of strength. She jumped and pulled the fruit down carefully, never wasting time. Sometimes she slipped, sometimes she stopped and looked around, but tonight was different. The old man had left a mango on the ground, soft and perfect and glowing golden in the moonlight. She saw it. She walked slowly toward it, her eyes wide, her feet bare and dirty. She bent down and picked it up, just as she was about to take a bite. She heard the chair creak and froze. The old man didn't move, he just sat and watched. His voice was rough from age, but soft when he spoke. "You like those mangoes, don't you?" The girl said nothing, she only stared, her hands shaking, the mango still close to her mouth. He pointed to the chair near him. "Not a trap, just a seat, come eat properly," he said. She looked at the fence, thought about running, but something in his voice stopped her. She walked slowly and sat on the edge of the chair, as if it might disappear if she moved too fast. She took a bite of the mango juice, ran down her chin, her eyes closed just for a second, like the taste was better than anything she ever had before. The old man didn't speak again. He only watched her, like watching a memory come alive again. He remembered his daughter, her small hands, her smile that disappeared too soon. He pushed the thoughts away and focused on the girl. She had scars on her arms, thin lines like burns or cuts. Old ones, healed but not forgotten. Her clothes were torn, her knees bruised, and her eyes full of something deeper than fear, something like silence that had lasted too long. After finishing the mango, she placed the seed carefully on the ground, as if it was worth something more than food. The old man leaned forward. "What's your name?" She didn't answer. He tried again. "Where are you from?" Still no answer, just wide eyes looking at the stars. He nodded slowly. "All right, you don't want to talk, that's fine. You can come here and eat, but no stealing anymore. You want food, you asked." She looked confused, then pointed at her own mouth, then shook her head. The old man understood. She couldn't speak, or maybe she didn't know how, or maybe she forgot how after whatever happened to her. He stood up slowly, his bones cracked and popped like the trees in the wind. He walked inside, came out with a blanket and placed it on the porch beside the chair. "Sleep there if you want to, cold out here, and wolves don't care if you glow or not," he said. She watched him go back inside. The door closed, but not all the way. He left it open, just a little. The girl looked at the blanket, then at the mango tree, then at the stars. Then she curled up and lay down on the blanket, pulling it tight around her. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in many nights she didn't sleep with one eye open. Inside the house, the old man sat at the window, watching her, his tea still cold, but his heart just a bit warm. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but something deep inside told him she was meant to be here, not just in his garden, but in his life. The stars shifted above the wind, whispered through the trees, and the world kept turning. But on that porch under the broken roof, something quiet and beautiful began, something strange and small and full of hope. Next morning would bring questions, but tonight needed no answers, just a girl, a blanket, and the soft taste of mango on her lips. A sun rose slowly, casting a golden light across the broken wooden fence and the quiet garden. The old man stepped outside with a heavy blanket around his shoulders. His steps were slow but steady. His eyes searched the porch where the girl had slept. She was still there, curled up small like a cat, her arms wrapped around the blanket, her silver hair glowing in the morning light. He stood silently, watching her chest rise and fall, her face peaceful, as if she had escaped something in her dreams that haunted her waking hours. He walked past her, careful not to startle her, and went to the kitchen. Inside the small house, he took 2 slices of old bread, placed them on a rusted pan, and lit the fire. The smell of toasting bread filled the house and drifted outside, where the girl's nose twitched. She opened her eyes, slowly blinking at the sun, then turning her head toward the open door. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and pulled the blanket tighter around her thin frame. The door creaked open fully, and the old man's voice came from inside. "If you want food, come sit." She stood up hesitantly. Her feet were cold against the stone floor, her steps unsure. As she entered the house, she looked around, her eyes scanning every corner like a soldier in enemy territory. The walls were full of photos, books stacked in uneven towers. A radio sat in the corner, humming low. She stopped. At the table, her hands resting on its edge, the old man placed a piece of toast in front of her, along with a metal cup filled with warm water. She looked at it, then at him, then back at the toast. He nodded and sat across from her. They ate in silence. The girl chewing slowly, her eyes never leaving the old man's face, as if waiting for something, maybe a trick, maybe a trap, but nothing came, only quiet chewing and the soft ticking of the wall clock after breakfast. The old man stood again and walked outside. The girl followed him like a shadow, not too close, not too far. He picked up a small shovel and pointed at a patch of soil beside the tree. "Help me dig," he said. She tilted her head, then took the shovel in both hands and began digging. Hours passed as they worked side by side, the sun climbing high above their heads. The girl never spoke, but her body moved with purpose, her hands quick and skilled. The old man watched her, sometimes not with suspicion, but curiosity. She knew how to move, how to hide, how to watch the trees. She reacted to every sound like it could be danger. He saw that she was more than just a runaway, more than a thief. She was a survivor, and survivors always carried stories too painful to tell. Later that day, she disappeared again, slipping through the fence like before, but not with fear, more like habit. The old man waited, watched the sky, watched the road, but didn't follow. He sat on his porch, sharpening an old knife, cleaning the rust from tools feeding the fire in the stove. He was used to silence, used to being alone, but today felt different, quieter, in a way that made the house feel bigger, emptier. Hours passed. The moon returned, the stars appeared, the porch light flickered, and still she didn't come back. Then, just before midnight, the fence creaked once more, and she appeared holding something wrapped in torn cloth. Her steps were slow, her body wet from the rain. She walked up the steps, placed the bundle on the porch, and unwrapped it. Inside was a strange purple fruit glowing softly with a light not of this world. She pushed it toward the old man and sat down beside it, breathing heavily, her clothes soaked, her hands trembling. The old man looked at the fruit, then at her. "You brought this for me?" She nodded once, then leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. He picked up the fruit, studied it, smelled it, then placed it beside the chair. He stood, walked back into the house, brought a towel, and returned to dry her hair. His hands were rough but careful. She didn't resist, didn't open her eyes, just let him do it like a child too tired to fight. When he finished, she opened her eyes and pointed at her chest, then at him, then back to the fruit. He didn't understand, not fully, but he felt it. He saw it in her face. This was not a gift. It was a message, a thank you, a promise, maybe something more. That night, she didn't sleep outside. She followed him into the house, curled up on the old sofa, and pulled the blanket tight around her. Again, he sat nearby reading a book, but not really reading, just holding it, letting the pages turn while his eyes watched her. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside, but inside was warm, safe, different, and as the girl slept, the old man whispered, without meaning to, "I guess I've got company now." The stars twinkled through the window, as if listening, as if watching two souls who found something in each other, not through words, not through questions, but through silence and shared space. The beginning of something that neither of them could name, but both already needed more than anything else. Morning sunlight spilled across the room like a golden blanket, touching the floor and climbing up the walls as the girl stirred on the old sofa. Her small fingers curled around the edge of the blanket, her eyes opened slowly, blinking at the unfamiliar safety around her. The room smelled of old wood and ash, but it was calm, warm, silent. She sat up, stretched her arms, and looked around. The old man was already outside watering the garden with slow, steady movements, his back hunched but strong, his face calm but alert. His eyes lifted when he saw her standing at the doorway, and he nodded once without a word. She stepped outside, her feet brushing the wet grass, her skin catching the early light and glowing softly like something not fully of this earth. She walked up beside him and took the second watering can without waiting for permission. Together, they moved through the garden, working side by side in quiet rhythm. The plants welcomed her presence. The soil seemed to breathe easier under her touch. The mango trees stood tall, as if they knew she was no longer a thief, but something more, something part of the land now. Later that day, the old man brought out a small metal box covered in dust and cobwebs. He opened it slowly, revealing broken tools, wires, screws, and a pair of cracked goggles. He placed the box between them and began repairing a tiny drone with trembling fingers. She watched him closely, then reached out and gently moved his hand, correcting the wire position. He paused, looked at her, then handed her the screwdriver and leaned back. She worked quickly, confidently, her fingers dancing across the pieces like she had done it before. He said nothing, just watched as the broken drone came back to life with a soft and lifted into the air. He asked quietly, "Where did you learn this?" But she only smiled faintly and shook her head, then turned her gaze back to the sky. The drone floated above them, spinning slowly, its camera blinking. The old man felt something stir in his chest, a thought that maybe she was more than just a lost child. Maybe she was built for something bigger. Maybe she came from something far beyond his understanding. As night returned, a low sound broke the quiet, a sharp buzz in the wind, a hum that made the hairs on the old man's neck stand up. The girl froze, her eyes wide, her body stiff like stone. The drone suddenly dropped from the sky, crashing near the tree. The old man grabbed a flashlight and scanned the garden, but there was nothing visible. Yet the sound grew louder. It was not from this earth. It was something foreign, something hunting. The girl rushed to the old shed, pulling a metal panel loose, revealing a hidden compartment. The old man followed as she pulled out a black box glowing with a soft blue light. Wires snaked from its sides, pulsing gently. She pushed the box into his hands, pointed to the sky, and mimed an explosion. Then tapped her neck and shook her head. His eyes narrowed and his mind raced. She was being tracked. They had found her. He opened the box and found a small chip blinking inside. Without hesitation, he ran into the kitchen, grabbed a hammer, and smashed it. The light died instantly, and the humming in the sky faltered for a moment. Just a moment before returning louder, stronger. The girl pulled him down behind the shed, her breath fast, her hands gripping his arm like steel. They watched the trees sway as a silver shape moved through the sky, slow and silent, scanning beams flashing across the garden. Then the shape vanished, disappearing into the clouds like a ghost with unfinished business. They stayed there for a long time, neither speaking, the wind whispering through the leaves, the stars hiding behind thick clouds. The girl leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, and for the first time, she whispered something soft, barely audible, but filled with meaning. She said one word: home. The old man closed his eyes and nodded, his voice rough and quiet. Then it's your home. Now, too, that night he gave her the small room at the back of the house, cleaned it, added an old lamp, and placed the purple alien fruit beside the bed. She touched it gently as if it was a piece of her lost world, something sacred, something broken. She slept peacefully that night, her dreams filled with old stars and new roots. And while she slept, the old man stayed awake on the porch, a shotgun across his lap and eyes on the sky, waiting, watching, guarding something he did not fully understand, but already knew he would protect with everything he had, because she was no longer a visitor, no longer a thief, no longer a stranger. She was family, and family does not run, family stays. Rain fell gently on the tin roof, creating a soft rhythm that echoed through the house. As the old man stirred from his chair, his bones ached, but his mind was sharper than it had been in years. The girl slept in the small room, her silver hair spread like moonlight across the pillow, the alien fruit beside her still glowing faintly. Even after so many days, he looked out the window, the garden soaked in rain, the mango trees swaying slowly in the wind. The world felt still, but his gut told him something was coming, something real. This time he moved to the workbench in the corner of the house where old weapons, tools, and forgotten memories were kept. He pulled out a dusty box marked with a fading military emblem. Inside were parts of old defense systems, not high-tech by today's standards, but powerful enough if you knew how to wake them up. He began piecing them together, soldering wires, adjusting sensors, and tightening bolts. His hands worked with silent purpose, the same way they had long ago in a war no one wanted to remember. By midday, the rain had stopped and the sky turned gray with heavy clouds. The girl helped him set up small devices around the property, motion sensors, tripwires, and a homemade EMP bomb hidden beneath the firewood stack. She moved with the same careful steps she used while stealing mangoes, but now there was no fear, only focus, only silent understanding between them. He never asked how she knew so much about defense systems, but he had a feeling she had lived through things no child should. As they worked, he finally spoke again, his voice low and calm. We won't run, we defend what's ours. She looked at him and nodded once, Her eyes steady, her body tense, the air felt different, like the storm had only paused not past that night while the stars blinked. Through the clouds a soft light appeared on the edge of the garden. A single red dot moving slowly across the trees, then another, then three more. The girl grabbed the old man's hand and pulled him back inside. She pointed to the sky, then to the ground, then tapped her wrist. He understood immediately. They were surrounded and time was short. He handed her the signal jammer from his drawer and whispered, "Activate when they get close, no earlier." She took it and crouched near the window, her breathing calm, her posture tight like a coiled spring. He loaded his shotgun and placed 2 extra rounds in his vest, his eyes scanning the darkness for movement. Then it came, a shape slipping between the trees, fast and silent, then another and another, sleek bodies armored in matte black helmets without faces, weapons held tight against their chests. Not human, not quite alien, something built for capturing, not killing. The first one stepped into the open yard and froze. A red laser crossed his chest, then the tripwire clicked. A burst of light exploded from the tree beside him, and he fell twitching. The others moved fast, but the girl slammed her palm against the signal jammer, and every light in their suits blinked and died. Confusion followed, weapons misfired, bodies stumbled over roots and wires. The garden turned into a maze of traps and chaos. The old man moved like a ghost between shadows, picking them off one by one, using the garden like a battlefield. He had planted every tree, built every fence, and now it was his weapon. The girl stayed low, throwing small MP pucks that exploded in blue sparks, shorting out armor and scrambling comes. The fight was fast, brutal, and quiet. By the time the moon rose high, the intruders lay in pieces across the mud and mangoes. The only sound was the soft hum of the alien fruit glowing from her room window. He stood over one of the fallen attackers, ripped the helmet off, and found not a face but wires blinking softly. A drone, not alive, not dead, just a tool following orders. He crushed the head under his boot and looked at the girl. She stood by the tree, watching him, not afraid, not proud, just tired. He walked over, placed his hand on her shoulder, and said, "Only one thing, they will come back." She nodded, reached into her pocket, and pulled out a small crystal shaped like a tear, glowing deep blue. She handed it to him and whispered softly, "Beacon." He took it carefully, placed it in his vest, and stared at the horizon, beyond the trees, beyond the stars. He now knew this fight was far from over, and their garden was more than a home. It was now a war zone. It was now a promise. That night, they didn't sleep. They sat together near the fire, her head resting on his arm, his eyes locked on the open window and the sky beyond, watching, waiting, knowing this was only the beginning. And still neither of them wished to be anywhere else, because in each other they had found purpose, they had found a reason to fight, and more importantly, they had found a reason to stay. The morning was quiet but not peaceful. The air felt heavy with something unseen, something waiting in the shadows of the trees. The girl sat under the tallest mango tree, her eyes closed, her hands resting on the soil as if listening to the earth. Her breathing slow, her thoughts deep. The old man watched from the porch, a notebook in his lap and a cup of bitter coffee beside him. The garden looked the same, but everything had changed. The traps had been reset, the broken drones buried, and the crystal beacon hidden beneath the roots of the mango tree. He called her over and opened the notebook. Inside were pages of notes, sketches, and strange diagrams, drawn with shaking hands and an old pen. He pointed at the mango fruit split in half beside the page, its glowing center pulsing like a heartbeat. He spoke slowly, carefully, choosing each word. "These mangoes, they're not normal, not just food, something in the soil, something in you. They respond to each other, don't they?" She didn't answer, but her silence was enough. She reached into her pocket, pulled out another seed, this one silver and smooth, and placed it gently in his palm. He stared at it, turning it over, feeling the faint hum under his skin. Then he looked at her, his voice softer. "What are you really? Where do you come from?" She hesitated, then knelt on the grass and began to draw with her finger in the dirt, a shape like a star, a ship falling, fire trailing behind. Then a tree, a mango tree planted by accident, by need. She pointed at the ship, then at herself, then at the tree, and finally at him. He understood: a crash, a survivor, a seed, and a stranger who became family. The seed she had just given him began to glow slowly, then brighter, until a faint pulse connected it to the mango beside them, a line of light like a thread of energy. The mango glowed in return, changing color, turning deeper, richer. The old man reached for his scanner, an old military tool, and waved it over the fruit. The reading was impossible energy levels. Off the chart, something bioactive, something that could heal or harm, depending on how it was used. He whispered almost to himself, "Their medicine." The girl nodded, then touched her side, lifting her shirt slightly, revealing a scar long and twisted. Running from her ribs to her back, the old man winced, but she smiled. Just a little, then pointed at the tree, at the fruit, then back to herself. The pieces clicked in his mind. The fruit was saving her, not just feeding her, it was healing her, repairing something inside her, something human doctors could never understand. He stood slowly, the notebook falling from his lap, and looked around the garden with new eyes. They worked all day gathering the strongest fruits, grinding them with leaves, filtering the juice and storing it in small glass bottles. The girl showed him how to mix them, how to test the color, how to smell the difference between safe and unstable. Some mixtures burned the wood, others cooled the skin like ice. He took notes, sketched tools, labeled jars. They had become more than gardeners now. They were scientists, healers, alchemists of a strange new world. At sunset, the girl climbed the tree with ease, sitting near the top, where the branches swayed with the wind. She pulled off a mango and tossed it to the old man below. He caught it, laughed, and called up to her, "Careful up there, don't fall." She smiled, then pointed to the stars beginning to appear in the sky. She made a circle with her fingers, then tapped her chest, then pointed at him again. He didn't speak, but he understood. She felt safe, not just here, but with him in this place that had become her new sky. Later that night, while bottling the last of the glowing juice, the old man heard a sound, a soft click near the back of the house. He grabbed his shotgun and signaled the girl. She dropped silently from the tree and vanished into the shadows. They moved as one around the side of the house. The sound came again, not machines, not drones, but footsteps, soft, slow, deliberate. They waited, held their breath, and then from the bush emerged a figure, not armored, not armed, just tall, pale, with silver eyes and hands raised in peace. The girl stepped forward quickly, her body tense, her face frozen. The figure spoke a single word in a language the old man did not know, but she did. Her body relaxed, her breath caught in her throat, and she whispered one word back, "Brother." The old man lowered his weapon slowly as the two embraced, not as strangers, not as enemies, but as family lost and found in the same garden where mangoes grew with power and light. The silver-eyed boy looked at the old man and bowed deeply, then reached into his coat and pulled out a black cube, placing it gently on the ground. Light flickered across its surface, then a voice began to speak in human language. "This is not over. Others are coming. They will not stop. The fruit is rare. The girl is rarer. You have been marked. But you are not alone. Prepare." The message ended. The cube dimmed and silence returned. The old man looked at the garden, then at the girl, then at the stars, and whispered, not to the wind, not to himself, but to the night, "I'm ready." The wind moved across the garden like a slow breath, carrying with it the scent of wet leaves and silent warning. The old man stood near the porch, his eyes locked on the path leading into the forest, where the strange boy had come from. His shotgun rested against the wall, but his fingers never drifted far from it. The silver-eyed boy sat under the mango tree with the girl, both of them whispering in a language the old man could not follow, yet he understood their tone, their urgency, their fear. That night the old man did not sleep. He sat near the fire, turning the black cube over in his hands again and again, trying to make sense of its smooth surface and hidden meaning. The warning echoed in his head like a drum. Others are coming. They will not stop. He had lived through wars, seen men fall, watched cities burn, but this was different. This was not a fight for land or power. This was a fight for something far older, something woven into the soil itself. By morning the boy was gone. The girl said nothing, only pointed toward the stars and held up two fingers, then curled them into a fist. The old man knew what that meant. 2 days, maybe less. He walked the garden once more, checking traps, sharpening tools, replacing broken wires. The mango trees swayed gently as if aware of the coming storm. The fruit glowed brighter than before, as if storing energy or calling out to something unseen. He led the girl into the house and opened the trapdoor beneath the rug, a hidden cellar filled with old supplies, maps, weapons, food that had long passed expiration but still smelled of survival. They organized everything, stacked cans, sorted bullets, tested gas masks, and patched up the broken walls of the basement. It was not much, but it was enough. It had to be enough. That evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed The world in orange. The girl knelt beside the tallest mango tree and placed both hands on the roots. Her eyes closed, her breath steady. The ground trembled slightly, a soft hum rose from the earth, and the tree began to glow, its trunk pulsing like a living heart. She whispered something into the soil, something not meant for human ears, then stood and walked back to the house, her face calm, her steps slow, her message sent at night. The wind changed direction, it blew cold, sharp, unnatural. The stars hid behind thick clouds, and the forest grew too quiet. The old man knew the signs of war, even when the weapons were invisible. He sat on the porch with his shotgun across his lap, his eyes scanning every shadow, every leaf, every crack in the silence. The girl sat beside him, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes glowing faintly with worry, not fear, not any more than it began a low vibration across the ground like distant thunder or heavy footsteps. The old man stood slowly, raised the shotgun and whispered, "Stay inside." The girl shook her head and stood beside him, her hands holding the small MPUC, her body steady, her eyes sharp. The first light appeared through the trees, a soft red beam scanning the ground, followed by another and another, until the entire edge of the garden was covered in red circles of light. Shapes moved through the darkness, tall and thin, with armor that shimmered like water in moonlight. They carried weapons unlike anything the old man had ever seen. Long staffs with glowing tips, humming with energy. The girl tensed, ready to run, ready to fight, but the old man raised one hand and spoke loudly. "This is our land, this is our home. Leave now, or pay for every step you take." The figures stopped. One of them stepped forward and removed their helmet, revealing a face half machine, half bone, eyes that glowed with blue fire, a mouth made of silver wires. It spoke in a deep mechanical voice. "The girl belongs to us. She carries what is not hers. Return her or be erased." The old man raised the shotgun and fired. The shell hit the figure square in the chest, sending it flying back into the trees. The others moved fast, but not fast enough. The girl threw the MPUC into the center of the group. It exploded with a bright flash, shorting out half their weapons and blinding their sensors. The old man pulled a lever hidden beside the porch, and the ground erupted with fire and smoke traps. Activated spears launched nets, fired explosions lit the night like a twisted fireworks show. The intruders fell one by one, their bodies sparking, their weapons failing their formation broken. The girl fought beside him, not with fists, but with light, using small crystals that froze their limbs and vines. From the trees that wrapped around their legs, the garden became alive, as if the earth itself had chosen sides and refused to be silent anymore. The final intruder turned to run, but the girl raised her hand, and the tallest mango tree split open, revealing a beam of golden light that struck the enemy down without mercy. The sky turned pale as dawn crept over the horizon, casting a soft light on the quiet battlefield where broken machines lay scattered across the muddy garden. The old man sat on the steps of his porch with blood on his shirt and dirt on his hands, his breathing slow but steady. Beside him, the girl rested her head on his shoulder, her eyes closed, her body wrapped in a wool blanket that carried the smell of smoke and mango blossoms they had won for now. But both of them knew that peace was a short breath, not a forever promise. Hours passed without sound. Not even the birds returned, as if nature itself needed time to understand what had happened. The garden had changed. No longer just soil and trees, it had become something sacred, something alive. The mango trees stood taller, their branches reaching toward the sky, their fruit glowing like stars, ready to drop healing into the world. The girl walked barefoot across the garden, touching each trunk, whispering in her soft alien tongue, her voice carrying a calm that wrapped around the old man like a memory he could not explain. Inside the house, he opened a small wooden box, one he had not touched in years, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. On it were lines drawn long ago, a will, a note, a goodbye, written when he thought no one would ever read it again. He crossed out his name at the bottom and wrote hers instead, carefully, slowly, with a hand that trembled, not from age but from meaning. She was not his blood, but she was his. Everything now, and the land, the house, the trees, all of it was hers forever. That evening, as the sun dipped low, the girl placed the last of the alien crystals around the garden, forming a perfect circle with the mango tree at the center. When she stepped back, the entire field glowed briefly, then settled into a low hum that felt like a heartbeat. She walked back to the porch, looked at the old man, and smiled. He smiled back, then nodded slowly without needing to ask what she had done. She had Made it a sanctuary, a place no outsider could find, no machine could scan, no war could reach. He carved a message into the largest mango tree using his old army knife, each letter deep and slow, each word chosen like a gift to the future. Here we lived. Here we grew, here we healed. He stepped back, looked at it, then added one final word. Daughter. She watched him carve it, her eyes bright with something more than tears, something like love wrapped in light, something only those who have lost and been found can feel. That night they shared a fire and one last cup of bitter tea under the stars. He told her stories from before the world changed, before machines, before silent stories of music, laughter, and a woman he once loved who danced barefoot. Under the same trees where they now sat, she listened, not just with ears but with soul, her fingers tracing patterns in the dirt that matched the rhythm of his voice. The fire cracked softly and the wind held its breath as if it too wanted to remember sometime. Past midnight, the stars shifted and a beam of golden light descended from the sky, not sharp, not loud, just soft and warm. A transport vessel unlike any the old man had ever seen hovered just above the ground and opened with a sigh. A figure stepped out, not armored, not cold, but dressed in flowing silver robes, with eyes that matched the girl's. He spoke no words but raised his hand in peace and waited. The girl stood slowly, her hand in the old man's, her body still, but her heart racing. She looked up at him, waiting for his permission, for a sign. He squeezed her hand and whispered, if you want to go, I'll understand. She shook her head and pointed at the tree, then at the house, then at her chest, then at him. Her meaning was clear. This was home now. This was her path, and she would walk it with him no matter how many stars called her back. The figure bowed respectfully, placed a small device on the ground, and returned to the ship, which lifted silently and vanished without smoke, without sound, without shadow. The device blinked once, then opened, revealing a seed glowing pure white. The girl picked it up, held it close, and planted it at the foot of the old man's porch, patting the soil gently and resting her hand there for a long time, as if passing a promise into the ground itself. Years passed, seasons shifted, storms came and went. The garden never stopped growing, and neither did the girl. She built greenhouses with her own hands, mapped the stars from the rooftop, taught birds to land on her arms, and painted the walls with pictures of her journey. She never spoke much, but every action was a story, every glance a poem, every smile a legacy. When the old man finally closed his eyes for the last time, the garden did not cry. It bloomed brighter, stronger, louder. His chair remained on the porch, his shotgun hung on the wall, but his heart beat in every tree, in every mango, in every step she took. Visitors came rarely, those who had lost something and were searching for hope. They never left empty-handed. The girl, now a woman, offered them fruit, stories, warmth, and a chance to begin again. Beneath the tree where it all began, the message still carved deep and proud. Here we lived, here we grew, here we healed and won. Word beneath it glowing softly in the evening light. Daughter.